Furry is sold out, man. Fandom's finally gone corporate, now it's all about the money. While you can always find someone declaring the end of furry, these sorts of complaints most commonly trace back to the idea that the fandom has become too popular or commercialized. As we talked about in our Furry is Punk episode, Fluff Punk, a big part of the appeal of the fandom is its democratization. Anybody passionate enough about furry can become a positive force in the fandom. So it's understandable to fear furry becoming just another fashion aesthetic. All of the wild, creative flourishes filed down into a safe corporate commodity. The worry that furry will become the next hot topic goth is culturally heft. Let's start with the most obvious kind of selling out: large corporations cashing in. In recent years, mass-produced fursuit heads have been put up for sale with online vendors and even at big box stores. While it's tempting to reject the commodification of furry wholesale, it's worth taking a closer look. First off, anytime you're part of a small group that likes something, having it get more popular can be unsettling. What if the community you've built gets flooded with newcomers and you hit a critical mass of jerks? What if the stuff that's really important to your subculture is stolen by people who don't understand it and just want to make money off of it? We all need communities, and losing one can cut you off from ways of connecting with others and exploring your identity. Those are reasonable fears, but let's look at the effects of having these fursuits on the market. No indie fursuit maker can compete with a $20 fursuit head. But they're cheap because they're basically a giant oven mitt with an animal face embroidered onto it. They're one step above just wearing a tail and ears. If you're broke and you want to participate, you can get a tiger mask to go with your tail and head to that fursuit rave. On the one hand, Walmart can sell cheap suits, but on the other, it's not possible for them to be fitted or unique. While you can argue that this undercuts suit makers, most suit makers can't make suits cheap enough for teens or college kids anyway, so it's not like that market will be stolen from them. Plus, we have to consider that buying one fursuit often leads to people to buy another, more expensive one. If you are just starting out in suiting, that cheap fursuit head could be the foundation for creative alterations. Most furries don't have suits or the ability to make them, so modifying an off-the-shelf product to look like your persona is filling a need that's currently going unmet. Having the option to get started without dropping thousands of dollars can bring people into self-expression through suiting who might otherwise be locked out by lack of money. For some perspective, let's compare this to the music scene. In what ways is the availability of entry-level punk stuff like hair dye, t-shirts, boots, vests at big box stores help or harm the music scene? Some kid buying a mass-produced Ramones shirt could be taking a first step into the punk scene, a step he might never have taken if it weren't on sale at the mall or online. Getting started in a subculture this way doesn't require you already knowing someone in it. Likewise, you don't need to have furry friends to start dressing furry, you just need a place to buy the gear. Furries are clickbait. We're kooky and colorful and always up to something new. Often something outsiders would consider weird and wild. We occupy a sweet spot where we're visible outside the norms of society, yet also non-threatening. Going bowling with your friends isn't a story for the local news, unless you're wearing a fursuit. This isn't always a bad thing. Furry conventions getting recognition for raising funds for animal charities is great for everybody. Fursuiters welcoming Syrian refugee kids, that's good for everybody involved. We talked a lot about fursploitation with Arrkay in a previous episode of Culturally Effed. So when does this cross the line? To determine if media is actually exploiting the fandom, it's important to ask two big questions. There are more questions in our Arrkay episode. First, could this media exist without the furry fandom? Sonic Boom. Sure, it references fan work, but also decades of material from the Sonic franchise. To reference a little of our own work, you can check out our episode about Sonic memes in the description. Our other example, Bob's Burgers Equestronauts episode. Nay. The whole episode centers around the Belchers attending a brony convention. And second, is the portrayal respectful? CSI's Fur and Loathing? Not respectful. Fursuiters are used purely for shock value. The 2017 film Pottersville? Yes, way more respectful. Rather than being the butt of the joke, Furry is presented as a healthy part of the characters' lives. Real-life fursuiters were even brought in as background roles. At its best, these sorts of references to the furry fandom can be love letters to the community. Friendship is Magic does this extensively. Check out Rusty on Furries in the Media, giving and critiquing more examples of disrespectful furry representation. Lots of plugs. We're gonna need a power bar for all these plugs. In 2015, IMVU, a chat app company, bought furaffinity.net, the largest and most heavily used furry website. Well, this would be the point in the film where the evil corporate overlords would ruin the site and suck money from hapless furries. Instead, not much has changed. Aside from running more ads for IMVU, very little has changed on FA. In fact, it raises the question of why buyouts don't happen more often. Many of the hubs of the fandom, like conventions and art websites, just aren't super profitable. Even large conventions have trouble charging enough to cover their costs. And because of the decentralized nature of the furry fandom, websites need to offer tons of furry media for free and with relative ease to entice users and content producers away from general interest sites like Tumblr and Twitter, etc. That means that any premium account on a furry art website would probably have to be limited to something like a DeviantArt has or maybe a Patreon clone. And there's an upper limit on how intrusive advertisements can be, since furries are generally pretty tech savvy and can be annoyed into running an ad blocker. An example of this next level pandering comes from Furry Amino. Amino Apps is a one-time sponsor to pretty much every furry YouTuber and tries to be Tumblr, Twitter, FA, a forum, a chat group, all rolled into one app. After IMVU buying Furfinity, Amino Apps is another digital company investing money directly into the furry fandom. Furries aren't just cash cows. Well, except for Moolah, whose persona is a literal cash cow. A more negative aspect of the furry fandom being more popular is the potential for companies to steal art and somehow monetize it. It's already happened a few times, where large companies take images and photos they find online and make a buck off it. Just like these knockoff fursuits we discussed in our episode on copyright. Quick addendum, these knockoff fursuiters also made an appearance in a vitamin water commercial, so it's already going on. One benefit of a more mainstream, popular furry fandom is that artists will be able to share a furry portfolio to get more professional gigs and employment with non-furry companies, which means more money for them to spend back into the fandom that helped them get further in their careers. This same portfolio, only a few years ago, would be laughed at and immediately dropped for consideration. But not these days, not so much. Does the fandom becoming more known and accepted affect various groups differently? Like race. In a mostly white society, there's an increased pressure on non-white teenagers to conform to societal norms. At an age when most furries discover the fandom, non-white kids have less opportunity to be adventurous with their self-image. By comparison, being a sports fan is so normalized that it doesn't cost anything socially. Pictures online of you in a team jersey won't impact your job or college prospects, whereas dressing up like a pink unicorn might. And this isn't even taking into account the economic realities many minority kids face. Not having a computer at home, let alone a computer of your own, puts a serious dampers on your chances of stumbling across the fandom by accident. You can't be part of a fandom if you never find out about it. The more well-known and established the furry fandom becomes, the more accessible it is for everybody. Similar dynamics are at play for gender. The benefits for men of a more mainstream furry fandom are pretty easy to spot. If men appreciating cute cartoon animals is socially acceptable, then men unlock a whole new world of art and self-expression. Not every moment in life fits neatly into traditional ideals of being tough and macho. Being allowed to be cute or silly or emotionally vulnerable does wonders for one's mental health. Women have other things to gain, as the fandom continues to normalize as well. Right now, most furry convention attendees are male by a significant margin. If you're a guy, this might not have never seemed like a big deal, but being the only girl at a furry gathering can make you feel isolated or like an outsider. Part of the appeal of the furry community is feeling safe and included, having found other people like yourself. Without those feelings, you are missing out on a big part of the experience. As a woman, you're going to feel safer and more like you're supposed to be at a con if you're not the only woman there. Also, the more mainstream something is, the less you expect extreme behaviors from the people participating. You can't do that here, this is a furry con, we have standards. This social pressure curbs some of the worst sexism and harassment, making the fandom a more inviting place for women and everyone. And it's not like women aren't interested in the fandom. According to Sofa Wolf Press, at least half of the artists in their publications are women. Heat, the most popular furry anthology, has better than a 50-50 split of contributors. Just as a woman might let people think she's a man online to avoid harassment, trans folks often avoid revealing their gender in most online spaces. Furry, though, is a community where anybody can be anything. So not fitting in with your birth gender is actually one of the most normal things going on around here. Personas are also a great way to explore facets of your personality. So they provide a ready-made way for anyone to experiment with gender and learn to be more comfortable with themselves. It's stressful to actively hide important aspects of yourself all the time, worrying you might let something slip and get a bunch of creeps coming after you. It's good for your mental health just to relax and be who you are, knowing others will accept you. The mainstreaming of furry contributes to society's already significant shift towards embracing the T in LGBT. Just as seeing women and trans people defying rigid gender roles helps society become more comfortable with gender, the public seeing more furry helps normalize all the playful self-expressions that happens in the fandom. This applies to age as well. It's easier for a kid to be a furry if she can just tell her dad it's nothing to worry about, they even sell the costumes at Walmart. Even if she doesn't buy a fursuit head from a bin at Walmart, the option to do so makes it way less scary for parents. Yes, it's fun to be part of an obscure clique. But if furries were as common as sports fans, furry conventions would be way less likely to be portrayed as drug-fueled rave orgies and masks. Conversely, the popularity of furry makes it more acceptable for adults to continue enjoying media with talking animals. Liking cartoons as a grown-up isn't embarrassing or a sign of your arrested development if plenty other adults also like it. There shouldn't be an age limit for fun. Like self-expression, fun is good for your sanity, and the saner the people are around us, the happier we all tend to be. In short, the sky isn't falling. We don't need to panic about the furry fandom ceasing to exist or becoming less beneficial to the people in it just because it's becoming more successful. Ultimately, the nature of the furry fandom comes down to us and how we choose to behave. So enjoy the furry media that you enjoy, whether it's the big budget movies or a homebrew YouTube cultural analysis series, because they each bring different things into the fandom. Welcome new people to the fandom, because having lots of perspectives leads to even more creativity. Show up and be who you are, because there's no place quite like the furry fandom, and whether you're a gray muzzle or a wide-eyed pup, we're glad to have you here. If you liked this video, please check out our companion episode, Fluff Punk, which compares the classic musical counterculture with our own contemporary furry fandom. It actually spawned this episode through the discussions of furry entering the mainstream and the fear of its losing its punk rock authenticity. Check out a link to the description to other episodes written by Tempeh Okun. I have been your host, Arrkay. Thanks for watching. Opinions on the internet?
I hope you guys fancied that episode. I'm all fancied up, but that doesn't mean I have to wear pants because I'm a rabbit. If you like Culturally Up, share, like, and most importantly, subscribe. Ding that little bell. Support for Culturally Up comes from our Patreon subscribers. Check out www.patreon.com/culturallyup and consider becoming a monthly donor. Check out our website, culturallyup.com. Consider buying one of our t-shirts and signing up for our monthly newsletter. If you do any or all of these things or follow us on social media, you will never miss another episode of Culturally Up again. That's a Rusty guarantee. If you excuse me, I've been your host, Rusty Shacklefur, tipping out my hat to all you subscribers out there. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, guys.